Αγαπητοί φίλοι, γονείς, απόφοιτοι και πάνω απ' όλα τελειόφοιτοι. Σας καλωσορίζω στο Κολέγιο στην σημερινή ιδιαίτερα σημαντική και συγκινητική εκδήλωση, την Τελετή Αποφοίτησης της τάξης του 2019. Θέλω να συγχαρώ ιδιαίτερα τους εκπαιδευτικούς και το λοιπό προσωπικό, το Διοικητικό Συμβούλιο στην Αθήνα και το Συμβούλιο των Επιτρόπων στην Νέα Υόρκη για την εξαιρετική επιτυχία τους στο να εμπνέουν και να διδάσκουν τόσους πολλούς ηγέτες της σημερινής Ελλάδας. Οι εκπαιδευτικοί μας και οι απόφοιτοι του Κολεγίου Αθηνών μας κάνουν τόσο πολύ περήφανος. Distinguished members of the 2019 graduating class. And yes, you are distinguished. Our college counselor told us yesterday that expectations are close to 100% acceptance of class of 2019 candidates at universities abroad, and nearly that at universities in Greece. You have distinguished yourselves in debating tournaments at Cambridge schools, Dury, Eurasian schools, Moraitis, and Panhellenic forensics tournaments. Not to mention first prize in Panhellenic fencing, participation of a classmate on the Greek national water polo team at the Belgrade World Championships, and Panhellenic physics, where you will represent Greece at the 50th International Olympiad in Israel. And don't forget Psychico College Young Entrepreneurs, winning first prize representing Greece at the Junior Achievement Europe event in France, and preparing to receive a further award in Helsinki next October. And an Athens College senior has been selected as a member of the National Informatics Team 2019, who will represent Greece in the Balkan Olympiad in informatics and the 2019 International Olympiad. I could go on, but I won't. Suffice it to say, you have done good. Now, don't rest on your laurels. Keep up these great works and stay in touch. The technology exists. Use it. By all means, stay in contact via our emerging state-of-the-art website and social media. We here will be applauding as you break new records in universities and careers. Finally, I applaud your parents who share in your success and will, in a sense, be graduating with you today. I ask that as the class of 2019, you now stand together and applaud them for their tremendous support. Please stand and applaud your parents. They have been there every step of the way. We are delighted to announce this evening that 2 full merit scholarships in memory of alumnus and former chairman of the Board of Trustees, Michael Dertouzos, will be awarded this fall and will be awarded each year going forward and in perpetuity. The Michael Dertouzos Merit Scholarships will be granted to 2 outstanding students entering the Gymnasio, one to a student with special affinity for STEM area subjects, the other to a student with demonstrated talent in the humanities. The annual support will come from a restricted fund within the U.S. endowment, generously given for this purpose and to honor our distinguished alumnus. As director of MIT's Laboratory for Computer Science for almost 30 years, Michael Dertouzos was a pivotal figure in the creation of the World Wide Web Consortium, the alliance of companies and groups promoting the evolution of the internet. Professor Dertouzos wanted computers to be as natural a part of our environment as the air we breathe. Spearheading a 2001 collaboration with MIT's Artificial Intelligence Lab to find ways in which computer technology could be used for humanity's benefit. He said at that time that we made a big mistake 300 years ago when we separated technology and humanism. It's time to put the two back together. Most recently, he was globally recognized by Google as one of the most charismatic figures of the 20th century. In honor of his remarkable vision, the world has recognized his contribution to knowledge and to furthering the development of the human spirit through advances in technology and the humanities. We celebrate this evening his achievements and his deep love for his alma mater of Athens College. We are also pleased to announce another restricted fund within the U.S. endowment in support of faculty professional development. This generous fund will annually and in perpetuity provide grants to 2 faculty members to participate in professional development, research, or experiential enrichment opportunities in the United States. These opportunities will be announced to faculty at the beginning of each academic year, and faculty will be invited to submit applications for the award and professional development opportunity which they wish to pursue. A selection committee will draw up a short list of candidates for final decision by the president. Awardees will share their experiences with colleagues upon their return and submit a report summarizing the knowledge they acquired. We express our enormous thanks to the generous trustee donors who have created these endowment funds through their gifts to benefit our students and faculty and for generations to come. I have a late-breaking development that I am proud to announce. At a meeting of the Board of Directors of Athens College this commencement week, Chairman Nicholas Tsavlidis and the directors voted to designate one of the 6 merit scholarships that they provide each year as the Haralambos Velis Memorial Scholarship, a distinguished name that will be carried in perpetuity, honoring the late chairman of the Athens College Board of Directors and a pillar of this school. Finally, thinking of scholarships, I would like to thank Konstantinos Koulouvatos' class of 1977 for making possible study abroad scholarships in memory of his brother Alexis Koulouvatos, class of 1984. Under these scholarships, 3 merit scholars are currently studying in the United States for 5 weeks. Engraved in marble outside my office in the Benakion are the distinguished past winners of the President's Award, running from Stephanos Delta, Homer Davis, George Gontikos, Michael Dertouzos, and yes, Haralambos Velis. We petty men can only gaze upward in awe at these plaques. This year's nominee served for 40 years in the Somatio, including 15 on the board of directors. By the end of his final term, he was by general acclamation considered to be the oldest board member, but unquestionably the youngest at heart. Although he has held high-level leadership positions in the tourism industry, education has been his passion, and in particular, Athens College. In my short tenure at the college, I have found him to be an out-of-the-box thinker who has not been threatened by change, but rather embraced new ideas and the imperative for the college to be cutting edge in the 21st century. You all doubtless have divined that I am speaking about Apostolos Doxiadis, who I now invite to the podium to receive the 2019 President's Award. Congratulations. Our commencement speaker today, and the first commencement speaker at Athens College since 1932, will be the noted author, journalist, and film producer, Nicholas Gage. Nicholas Gage has spent the first half of his career as an investigative reporter for the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, receiving worldwide recognition for articles on organized crime, drug trafficking, and political corruption. He obtained the first Nixon tapes in the Watergate scandal, and the second half writing books, including Eleni, which received the National Book Critics Circle nomination for Best Biography and was awarded first prize by the Royal Society of Literature of Great Britain and made into a motion picture. He also produced renowned films, such as The Godfather Part 3, nominated for 7 Oscars. Nick, whether or not, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude, Athens College must endure another 100 years of silence awaiting the next commencement speaker, will depend entirely on your eloquence today. And it is a great pleasure and honor to invite you to this podium.
Reverend clergy, whose prayers I am sure are responsible for the fine weather we have tonight and the break in the heat wave. President Jackson, members of the faculty and administration, distinguished alumni, special guests, proud parents, and awesome graduates of the class of 2019, your big day has arrived. And it's such a great pleasure for me to share it with you. But I have to tell you that when President Jackson asked me to make the graduation address tonight, I hesitated at first because I questioned how I, nearing the end of my 7th decade, You're supposed to say he doesn't look that old. Could say anything that's meaningful to young people not quite out of their teens. Then I thought of when my son was your age, and his mother and I brought him to orientation at his college, Brown University. We were invited to a reception by its then president, Vartan Grigorian, and after his remarks, he asked if anyone had any questions. I raised my hand and asked him why Brown didn't have a core curriculum like other universities. He looked at me and smiled forbearingly and said, "Mr. Gage, our total knowledge doubles every 10 years. How can we have a core curriculum when we live in an age of such tremendous change?" I responded, "I realize that, Dr. Grigorian, but how to appreciate beauty, how to discern truth, how to write a simple declarative sentence well, another basic knowledge an educated person needs doesn't double every 10 years. So recalling that exchange, I agreed to accept President Jackson's invitation to address you tonight because there are some basic truths about education that don't change with the years, and it might be appropriate at this milestone in your lives to give you my short list. As young people, soon to begin your higher education, I know you are filled with ideas and hopes about acquiring the knowledge and developing the skills to make an impact in the world as adults, not only to better yourselves, but to make the world better. Along with the great optimism, I know you are acutely sensitive with what Euripides called the giant agony of the world, injustice. And you will fight it wherever you find it. And I hope that no matter how preoccupied you become in life, you will never cease to find injustice and misery and abuse and manipulation intolerable. Plato defined education as that particular learning which leads you throughout your life to hate what should be hated and to love what should be loved. What then should you love as much as you hate injustice, cruelty, and misery? I will tell you my top 3 choices. The first is the right to live under one's own control and not another's. In a word, a Greek word, eleftheria, freedom. We don't hear much about it when we have it, but listen to what life without freedom can be like. When Greece was under Ottoman rule, the Sultan had a standing order for the seizure of the most attractive, well-bodied, and spirited youths between the ages of 10 and 20 to be trained for the Janissaries, the Sultan's special forces. A 1601 order by the Sultan declared, and I quote, "The infidel parents or anyone else who resists are to be hanged at once in front of their house gate, their blood being considered of no importance whatsoever," end of quote. The idea of personal freedom is a daring concept that we Greeks invented. All societies before the Greeks were a succession of tyrannies. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Hebrews, the Assyrians, the Chinese, all believed that a society without an all-powerful ruler would disintegrate into chaos. It was we Greeks who dared to believe that a society can have both order and freedom. And out of that daring idea have come all the values that the world cherishes today: democracy, human rights, equal justice under law. The second principle I urge you to remember throughout your lives may be called excellence, performance, or simply doing your best at whatever you do. In another Greek word, areti. The truth is that most people don't work at their full potential. In fact, they don't work anywhere near it. So if you put a little extra effort in everything you do, I can guarantee you that you can outperform not only your peers, but also those who are smarter, luckier, or even more talented than you, and you will wind up doing pretty well in life. Let me cite an example of how a little extra effort can make a lot of difference from my own experience as a student when I was a graduate at Boston University. When I was a junior there, I was an editor of the Boston University News. A book was published by a respected New York Times drama critic, Arthur Gelb, a biography of the great playwright Eugene O'Neill, the only American playwright to ever win the Nobel Prize. O'Neill died at a Boston hotel that had since become a dormitory of Boston University. And I thought I would do a story for the student paper, and I went to the dormitory, and I went up to the suite, and I looked around, and I saw that there was no fireplace in the suite. And it was crucial because in the biography, Gelb had quoted Mrs. O'Neill that the playwright had asked that all his unfinished plays be torn and burned in the fireplace. And she said it was like burning children. I wanted, I saw that there was no fireplace there, and the next day I went down to the City Hall and checked the file for the hotel, going back to when it was constructed. There was never a fireplace in that building. So I wrote a story saying this dramatic scene in this great biography could not have happened. And the next day, I got a call from the author, Arthur Gelb. He said, how could you question this? I've spent 10 years researching it, and I've got the information directly from his wife. I said, Mr. Gelb, did you go to the hotel? He said, of course I went to the hotel. I've been a reporter for 29 years. I said, did you go up to the room? Well, he said it was raining that day, and I had a train to catch. I didn't quite make it. So I continued my research, and I found a maid that worked for the O'Neills, and she told me how Mrs. O'Neill called her to the suite, and they took torn manuscripts in a wheelbarrow to the basement and burned them in the furnace. And I wrote a second story. And the author, Arthur Gelb, called me and congratulated me on my research methods and advised me that I should become a journalist. 6 years later, Arthur Gelb became a top editor of the New York Times, and the first person he hired as, in his position was the little Greek kid from Boston University. And whenever I would do some controversial stories, he would come to me and he would say, Nick, are you 100% sure about your facts? Because if you're wrong, not only would you lose your job, but I'll lose my job. And I would look him in the eye and say, Arthur, I went up to the room. I've been That little extra effort in my junior year at Boston University paid off for years. I've been talking about performance because it can give you a leg up on the rest of the world and provide the personal satisfaction that comes from doing the best you can. But as important as achievement is in life, there's something that's even more significant. And it's the final message I want to leave with you. No matter how successful, how admired, how learned you become, it will mean little unless, as St. Paul says, you put love first. This is something that I did not learn until I was in my mid-40s. At that time, I left my job as a foreign correspondent with the New York Times to devote myself to investigating the facts surrounding my mother's execution by communist guerrillas in our village in northern Greece in 1948. I wanted to find out why and by whom she was arrested, tortured, and shot. I interviewed nearly 400 people all over the world who were witnesses to her ordeal. And I set out to kill the man most responsible for her death. But when I finally found him, a broken down old man, I could bring myself to do it because I didn't want my mother's story to be defined by an act of vengeance, but by her act of love and sacrifice. By the end of my journey, I had changed a great deal, and I learned something that more than compensates for the pain of the search. I learned that the thing that counts most, especially as you grow older, is the quality of the personal relationship you have with parents, children, friends, brothers, and sisters. My mother died to save her children, and she made me see how fortunate I am. In the love of my children, my wife, and of the sisters who went through those terrible years with me. Her death made possible the lives and happiness of her 5 children, 13 grandchildren, and 24 great-grandchildren who have been born so far. That is why my mother's death is a triumph, not a defeat, and that is the discovery I made in research and writing my book, Eleni. Successful relationships need as much work as successful careers, especially in an era marked by isolated nuclear families, widespread divorce, and ruthless moving from place to place. I wish you all great success in achieving the goals you set for yourself today, but in the end you'll discover that nothing else, no material success, will mean as much as the love you have given and received. Give the coming years the best of your talent and energy, but don't overlook the love of the parents with you here tonight, who watch with a mixture of sadness and joy as you set out to discover your future. And give as much thought to the relationship you will build in that future with your husband or wife, your children, your friends. For in the end, that's what counts, and that's where you will find the only lasting satisfaction. But I can tell you from the vantage point of my 7th decade that after education ends and life begins, you will encounter many storms in your journey, many risks, many dangers. But Greeks were not meant to waste away in safe harbors. You were born to strike out to the open sea, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield to any fear. So lift your anchors and turn your eyes to the far horizons. Great adventures await you. Go and find them. Thank you.
Great.